Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Surah An-Nahl, chapter 16, and we will only cover verse 97 today because it has Eimaan and Salehdeeds mentioned in it. And there are a few other points which the verse has stated. So we will go through those details and give some examples as well. These are the references. And this is our contact in case there is any query or question regarding this presentation or any of our previous presentations. Recap verses 92 to 96, previous presentation. By quoting the simile of a woman who breaks into untwisted strands the yarn she has spun after it has become strong, the Quran has asked us to not let our efforts in life go to waste. We are witnessing examples of this before our very eyes in the world in which we live under the man-made systems. Why do human beings behave like this? Because human beings' psyche, the way we are, if we are unguided, we tend to become self-destructive. And that is the point and the fact to which the Quran draws our attention at a number of places. This is because they ignore the law of requital and think that they can get away with their evil deeds in the world. Very important point, as we know that the Quran refers to human accountability again and again. And if we omit this fact and do not pay attention to it, then we will go astray. The Quran declares that no human being can escape the consequences of his or her deeds. Allah has created human beings with choice and intent and has provided the guidance of Wahi so that those who follow it willingly, and that is very important, willingly, not mechanically, can fulfill the purpose of the creation of the universe and their own creation. They can enhance their own value and eminence in order to acquire an eternal existence through their own choice. And that is another important point, that we have a certain value and eminence at a particular point in time. We have to enhance it, and it can be enhanced because we are built like that there is potential within our consciousness to expand. And we can see that by acquiring more knowledge, we can expand the horizon of our outlook. What do they need to do? Firstly, fulfill their covenants and never fail in this respect. Secondly, remind themselves that it is through Allah's Wahi they can get the best out of this life. Thirdly, the recipe of success is to remain steadfast and aim for the best and balanced conduct and remain focused on all the divine attributes of Allah. And we discussed this covenant issue in our last presentation, that essentially when we make a commitment to the Quran, we enter into a formal covenant, a formal agreement with Allah, that we will strive on His path with our possessions and our life. To keep reminding themselves that success on this path of Allah is guaranteed and that it is not otherworldly. The transformation in the human self becomes an evidence in itself on this path, illuminated by the light of the Quran. An overview of today's presentation. Context includes the world around us, human choice and intent, and no inner guidance. The purpose of human creation, constraints imposed by the man-made systems, etc. While we are going through this presentation, we should keep the word of 2023 at the back of our mind, and then we will see that how the Quran presents the solution. What is the Quranic position on this? Two paths of life are made clear, i.e., either the path of our unbridled desires or the path of the permanent values of the Quran. And then the choice is left to us. We have an I, consciousness, intellect, desires, emotions, feelings, memory, body, etc. Our brain produces thoughts continuously and we need to be aware of them. And this is a very important point, that our brain produces thoughts continuously and we need to be aware of them. Whatever value system we have, it helps us to make decisions at every crossroad in our life. And we should be aware of what are our values, whether these are permanent values of the Quran or relative values of the man-made system. The Quran presents itself as an external criterion to provide guidance in our life, and this is where we need to have Eimaan through a process. It is not faith or belief. It is the process and procedure of acquiring conviction through evidence and rational thinking within the orbit of the Quranic value system. That means that if I have a conviction, I should exactly be able to explain it to others through evidence. A newly self-concept appears within us when we acquire this Iman. It is not merely a mechanical way to understand it. We need to acquire and accept it so that a tangible change takes place within us, i.e. in our psyche, and we start to see problems in the world with the Quranic perspective in mind, and do Salehdeeds in order to understand the system of Deen. The Quran guides us in this aspect throughout our life until we leave this physical world. So commitment to the Quran is not a 1 day, 2 day, 1 week, 1 year, or few years commitment. It is a commitment for rest of our life. And of course, since this life joins up with the hereafter, then it means it will continue beyond our physical death. Let us go to the verse 1697, accept Iman and do Salehdeeds in order to acquire new life. Man amila salihan min zakarim aw unsa wa huwa mu'minun fala nuhyiyannahu hayatan tayyibatan wala najziyannahum ajrahum bi ahsani ma kanu ya'malun. Remember, our law in this regard is that whoever among you, after having conviction in the truth of the divine system, performs such deeds which reform his own self and society, then we will cause him to live a very pleasant life. This will be the outcome of those deeds of theirs which are manifested by them in a balanced manner. I have highlighted Amila Salihan and then Wahuwa Mominun. They have to be Momin and then do these Salehdeeds. And over here is a very important part of it, that by doing these two, Fala nuhyiyannahu hayatan tayyibatan. And fa over here is indicating that what is being stated earlier, this is linked to this, that Allah will give them a life. Now this is important, that all of these people before doing Salehdeeds and becoming a mu'min had life. But over here the Quran is pointing to a different aspect of life, and we will discuss it. Defining Iman. This is the root of Iman, to be convinced, to accept, to verify something, to rely upon, or have confidence in. This is usually translated in English as belief or faith, and faith in turn signifies acceptance without proof or argument, or without reference to reason or thought, knowledge or insight. Faith is generally regarded as the negation of knowledge or reason. It is said about Kant, for instance, that he found it necessary to deny knowledge in order to make room for faith. Iman is synonymous with conviction and is based on reason and knowledge. The Quran does not recognize as Iman any belief that is divorced from reason and involves blind acceptance of any claim. Deen involves the acceptance of certain things which cannot be known through sense perception. But there is no reason to presume that things which cannot be perceived do not exist. For example, aspects related to the human psyche. In any event, Iman, according to the Quran, signifies the conviction that results from full mental acceptance and intellectual satisfaction. This kind of conviction bestows a feeling of Aman. Aman means peace, inner contentment and peace. Aman and Iman have a common root of Amen. And a mu'min is one who accepts the truth in such a way that it ensures his own peace. And that is important because he understands what peace means. And then he wants to extend it to others and helps him to safeguard the peace and security of the rest of mankind. So if we do not understand what Aman is, then how can we ensure the Aman of others? So it is important that Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen, those who are on this path, understand it fully and then have a desire to pass it on to others. Indeed, Al-Mu'min is one of the attributes of Allah Himself. So we need to display this attribute within our personalities. Next is root of Salihan, and the root is given here. Such deeds and actions due to which a fault or deficiency becomes removed. Those deeds which produce proportion and balance, individually and collectively. And obviously we can't do it unless we understand it. The state in which things should be organized for the establishment of peace, balance, harmony, and order. For example, it is used in relation to a healthy child in the Quran, فَلَمَّا أَتَاهُمَا صَالِحًا, when Allah bestows on them a healthy child. In another verse, it is said in relation to the removal of a fault in conceiving a child. This is in relation to the messenger Zechariah. Waslahna lahu zawjahu. We cured his wife for him. Also see 46:15 in relation to parents and children. Wa an amala salehan tardahu. Salehdeeds as you may approve. Those deeds which develop man's latent potentials and help to evolve to higher stages of life. It is the opposite of fasad, which means chaos and imbalance. Iman, which does not motivate to do saleh deeds, is merely a belief in words only and cannot produce the results as noted in the Quran. It should form part of a collective effort towards bringing a change in a society. Few comments on the human self, nafs. The entire dynamic enterprise of the universe is continuing because of this very I, which is called the human nafs, whose status is higher than the word of reasoning. So far, the word of science has not yet been able to provide any meaningful and useful information about the human nafs. The Quran states, who has created and further given order and proportion, who has ordained laws and granted guidance towards them. So the I, which we possess, each one of us possess, it has choice and intent, and that is what is our nafs, and that is the one where we should concentrate to make it grow and make it develop. In other words, as life being a display of divine energy, which is universal and flowing incessantly like electrical energy in the veins and arteries of the whole of the universe, when life is identified with consciousness, then from this the human ego becomes personified. Consciousness is an individual entity of man. No one else can share my feelings of sorrow and pain. Others can sympathize with me. They can think of therapies for my pain, but they cannot share in the perception of my pain. So integrity of each I, each nafs is absolute. It cannot be made into pieces. Since the human ego is personified, therefore it is individual. It is through this individuality that it possesses its own permanent existence. Human consciousness is not a consequence of the mechanical process of evolution. Hence, the human self is also not a creation of physical evolution. The human form is the vehicle for the manifestation of this ego. The human being is in reality this very ego. So all our feelings, our outlook, our perceptions, everything forms part of our I. And this is taken from human self and Iblis. Iman and character. It is Iman itself which produces results in any system. Even the best of systems cannot produce results until people at the helm of affairs operate it with the purity of their hearts and vision. So if there is impurity in the world and the world around us and the society around us, that means the people who have organized that society, their vision is impure. If you judge a system by mathematical calculations, it will demonstrate extremely pleasant results, but in practical world, its outcomes will not manifest as such. This is because if this system is implemented through machines, then external influences will have no effect on it. But if in place of machines, it is implemented through the hearts and minds of human beings, accordingly, until there is the ability for purification of the intellect and vision in this system, it will not be able to produce pleasant outcomes. The foundation of the system which is established through Wahi is on this great fact that eminence of character is inherently mandatory for the Jamaat running this system. Also for eminence of character, it does not adopt any outside means. Instead, this attribute exists within this system by obedience of which purification is automatically produced in the heart and mind. In fact, you could say that this is the very first thing which is produced. Everything else is a consequence of it. And this is also taken from the human self and Iblis. Character is dependent on Iman. Eminence or fortitude is produced in the human character through Iman. In the word of human interaction, it is possible that you may declare honesty to be the best policy, that is course of action, as a matter of convenience. And we see this. A lot of people say that honesty is the best policy and we should be honest, but their conduct is quite opposite to it. Or in order to gain respect in society and to live a life of popularity in the world, you espouse honesty and the path of good relationships. It is also possible that you consider this path to be better according to wisdom and reasoning. or you may naturally happen to be humble, balanced, well-mannered, and compassionate, or considering some works of charity and donation as being noble acts. You carry these out as a matter of custom. And we see this. There are thousands of, for example, there are over 20,000 charities in the UK, and there is still homelessness, and there is still deprivation, and there are people still have problems. And it is because these things are done mechanically. Nothing among these can be called steadfastness of character. Eminence of character has neither any connection with decisions of the intellect nor with customary acts and conduct, because this is an inner change. And the one who is experiencing that change, he knows it and he can check it against the external standards laid down by the Quran. Strength of character and eminence is connected to a conversion of the heart. And this is important. Its whole structure becomes raised and organized on the foundations of the heart. Until the time that a revolution does not take birth within the word of the heart, until the points of view are not transformed, until then purification of thought and righteous deeds are not possible. We have gone over this point previously as well, that intellectually we might think that something is good, but our heart is not into it, or we are not passionate about it, then we cannot do those things with full devotion. So both mind and heart have to be into some project, into some aim, some goal, only then we succeed. And that is the one which will develop ourselves, help grow ourselves. And beautification and adornment of character is the very name of purification and organization of thought and vision, and not of decisions based on intellect alone. Again, it is taken from human self and Iblis. Let us now analyze the verse 1697. It starts with the carrying out of Salehdeeds, i.e., in order to bring out those latent potentials which are kept within each man and woman, equality established at the self's level. We need to do those deeds which can help bring forth all those aspects of human abilities which are intrinsic within every child from the time of his or her birth. And the Quran says, Man amila salihan min zakarim aw unsa. And this is the beauty. If we pay attention to this verse, we see that what Quran is saying is that surely those who do Saleh deeds, that is, they wish to bring out what is within them inbuilt, and which is not apparent to them initially, but gradually as they start following this path, then they will see that they are making a difference in the society in which they are living. And by virtue of increasing their understanding, they are grasping those issues which others can't. And that is the beauty. And then the equality of it. It makes no difference whether it is a man or a woman. So see, at a cognitive level, the Quran has very clearly said that despite having a different physical roles, they have a same self. Why do we need to do this? If we buy a machine but never become familiar with its utility value for which the manufacturer designed and built it, then essentially we fail to draw its full benefits and the purpose of the machine will remain unfulfilled. I put down this example and because machine doesn't have a self, but at least from our day-to-day life, we know that if we have something, we possess something and we do not use it to its full potentials, then essentially we do not benefit from it. However, the machine we bought does not have a life in the hereafter. Hence, even if we only take the minimum benefit from it, this has least consequences. As a human being, we have a self, and this demands our careful attention as this affects both this life as well as the life of the hereafter. And that is a very pertinent point. We should keep in mind that our self does not die with our physical death. The next part of the verse qualifies the Saleh part and adds a scale of Eimaan to it. Wahuwa mu'minun. And this kind of a question arises in many people's minds, that what will happen to those who do a lot of good deeds but they are not mu'min? And Quran answers it in this verse, and we will go through it, some of these finer points. For these Saleh deeds, there is a need for the prerequisite of Eimaan. And through the acceptance of this, one becomes a mu'min. What is this condition on which the Quran places so much emphasis? Something very important is now coming up for which we will have to pay very, very keen attention to understand this point, because this is something which, unless we come to grips with this, we cannot explain it to others. And we cannot understand other verses of the Quran which are related to Iman. Why is there a precondition of Iman? The law of requital operates through human thoughts and deeds. For everything we do in life, there has to be a thought, idea, belief, concept, desire, feeling, need, etc. before it. And we can test it. I couldn't have put this presentation together unless I had thought about it. When I thought about it, and then my passion joined in and said, okay, now start doing it. And all that what we are seeing presented here is a combination of both intellect and heart, with that idea of initial thought that this presentation has to be shared with others. And same is the case with all of our participants here, that they made a decision, a deliberate decision that they will come and join it and then share it. And not even if they have already understood this, but in order to be part of the platform, in order to be part of everyone else. And that point will become clearer as we go through this presentation. The scale of this thought decides the scale of the impact on ourself, that is on our I, and this aspect is highlighted by Allah when it says, Inna Allaha ala kulli shay'in qadir. Everything which human beings do have an inbuilt scale into it. And the scale of the deeds decides that what kind of impact it will have on individual self. Wherever this appears, we can figure out the scaling aspect of human actions in the world. Since Iman is based on accepting that concept of Allah, which is based on the Quranic values and divine attributes as noted and referred to in various verses, hence this decides the scale of each and every Saleh deed of ours and its impact on ourselves. This is what it means when the Quran declares that Allahu waliyul lazina amanu yukhrijuhum minal zulumati ilan nur. Allah is the companion of those who accept Iman, and as a consequence of this commitment of theirs, He brings them out from the darkness of unguided life into light. See now, Iman is Allahu waliyul lazina amanu. He is the companion of those, and again it is plural here, those who have Iman and they are together. And this point should be kept in mind as we go through some of the verses which are coming next. This companionship also points to its purpose, i.e. to carry out those tasks and duties which Allah invites mu'mineen to carry out in the worldly life by following the light of Wahi. And Quran has said in Surah Al-Baqarah, فَإِمَّا يَأْتِيَنَّكُم مِّنِّي هُدًى فَمَن تَبِعَ هُدَايَ فَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. Surely guidance will come from me. Whoever follows my guidance, on them will be no fear and huzn. Now, new life placed within our reach. We now go to the next part of this verse. What is noted next is of immense importance. The Quran states, فَلَا نُحِيَنَّهُ حَيَاتًا طَيِّبَةً. We will give a new life, a life that is good, i.e. has both physical and cognitive aspects are covered here. Iman and Salehdeeds will lead to a higher understanding which includes coming to grips with the issues of human living. This is why the Quran has said that in Surah Yasin it says, Le yunzera man kana hayya. Just see, yunzera means warning, and it starts with la at the beginning. And this la is the beneficial form because it is saying that what is being stated next is for your own benefit. This is the way system is. An admonishment for the benefit of those who wish to be alive. So without the Quran, Allah is saying that you are not alive for those things for which you have been created. Becoming alive, becoming aware of those things which are going to help you to grow, to create a new life within you. Otherwise, first life, if Allah had to create, He could have created us like animals. But we are not animals unless we wish to behave like animals. That's our choice. This aspect is mentioned at a collective level in 824. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu stajibu lillahi walir rasule iza da'akum lima yuhyikum. O mu'mineen, give response to the call of Allah. See, this verse is after becoming mu'mineen. So if one is not becoming a mu'mineen, one will not be able to pick up what is being stated next. Give response to the call of Allah and the Messenger when He calls to that which will give you life. Accepting and understanding this point leads to creating that desire and need for this striving on the path of Deen. These two intrinsically linked terms define the path towards the system of Deen and are to be viewed as the law of Allah, i.e., when a Jamaat becomes formed by those who have accepted this procedure and have acquired a developed self, then their hearts become united as noted in 3:103. This is because innamal mu'minuna ikhwatun, in another verse Quran says, surely all mu'mineen are brothers to each other. Actually, the word ikhwa, if we look at its root, we will find that it is more than the physical relationship. It is coming together with the same ideology, with the same outlook, and through efforts to come together so that one can value that companionship. And we have seen that we cannot become companion of Allah without acquiring Iman and then without coming together. Few points to set the scene for further elaboration. The issue of accountability comes first, as the Quran states in 45:22. When the Quran declares that every self is accountable for its deeds, then this implies that in the human physical world there should be some mechanism for executing this accountability. Otherwise, there will be chaos and conflicts in the world. Might is right cannot be allowed to prevail in the world. It also cannot be left for the hereafter. And this is not something right that we say, okay, now we can leave the world the way it is, and I'm not going to make any efforts to change it and let people be accountable in the hereafter. That is a negative way of thinking. What Quran is asking is to make an effort and then see if the results appear in your life or not. If the path is right, the results will appear. The creation of man with choice and intent means that there is no inner guidance within each one of us, and hence we need external criteria for guidance to live this life, i.e., someone needs to explain to us that why are we sent to this planet, and what is the purpose of all this formality of the creation of the vast universe and our place within it. For this, the Quran states, Inna hadainahu sabila imma shakiram wa imma kafura. We showed him the path, whether he opts for the self's growth or resorts to kufr, that is path of rejection. So just saying that shukr Allah means nothing. According to the Quran, it is the path of following Iman and accepting Iman and then following Salehdeeds. Further clarified it by stating, Qala Rabbuna allazi ata kulla shayin khalqahu summa hada. And Moses said that our Rabb is He who gave form to each created thing and then guided it as to its purpose. We are a creation, very precise creation, who have a aim in front. We have a destination. Our destination is continuous self-development. And that is the beauty of human life, that once we get onto this path, then there is no end to it. It is continuously developing. And that should create some kind of an excitement and desire within us, that let us see what comes next, rather than sitting in despair and waiting for the man-made system to consume us. Then pointed to scaling in everything created by Him. Wallazi qaddara fahada, who ordained laws, that is qadar, and provided guidance. Then the final aspects of this mode of guidance are noted in the Quran, which mu'mineen are invited to acquire understanding of and then to share with others. This sharing with others presupposes understanding the guidance. Now, I have put some pictures over here because I thought just to create interest and as an evidence. Word of 2023, who will resolve these issues of life? And there are few examples here. This is Syria. It used to be a fairly vibrant country and had vibrant towns, and now we know what is the state over there. This is Yemen. And this is Palestine. This is the previous picture. There's so much devastation in that part of the world that it is pathetic. Ukraine, this could have been easily avoided. Sudan, and we know what is going on over there. And this is Gaza, and this is of 2023. Vietnam, now who owns these helicopters? 8,573 miles away from Vietnam. And what are they doing over there? And this happens when there is no Jamaat-e-Momineen in the world. Stalingrad, 1941, 1,377 miles from Berlin. What were Germans doing over there? And this is Islamabad, and right under the shadow of the capital, these are the slums, and they are all human beings and citizens of that country. And I thought just to give an example of India as well, Mumbai, and both of these countries are one of the most backward countries in the world. And there are millions and millions of human beings who are deprived and destitute. And this is America's homeless crisis revealed. They can go and bomb in Vietnam. They can go and bomb and go and bomb on all these places across the world. But just see what is the state over there in some of the cities. And why do they do it? And that is the question which should come to our mind, that they deliberately do it. And why do human beings deliberately do it? Because they think they are not accountable. And why they think they are not accountable? Because there is no Jamaat-e-Momineen to make them realize and to hold them accountable. And this is the state of those who claim to be the custodians of the Quran. Will this solve these issues? Now let us go to the first verse, which in support of what we are discussing today, 6:151, taking on the duties of Allah in relation to the human world. And these things do come to our mind, that if Allah is watching everything and He's everywhere, why isn't He doing anything about it? He's not doing anything about it because He's waiting for those human beings who accept Eimaan, then do Salehdeeds, then come together, create a Jamaat, and then they get established somewhere and then carry out His duties. So the whole of the Quran from beginning to the end, we should read it to see what are the duties over here which Allah, which are His duties, but He's asking Mu'mineen to do it, do these, carry out these duties. And that is how we should look at it at the Quran. And carrying out those duties is Salehdeeds. قُلْ تَعَالَوْا أَتْلُ مَا حَرَّمَ رَبُّكُمْ عَلَيْكُمْ أَلَّا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَوْلَادَكُمْ مِنْ إِمْلَاقٍ نَحْنُ نَرْزُقُكُمْ وَإِيَّاهُمْ وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الْفَوَاحِشَ مَا ظَهَرَ مِنْهَا وَمَا بَطَنَ وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا النَّفْسَ الَّتِي حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ ذَلِكُمْ وَصَّاكُمْ بِهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ. This was regarding edible things. After this, the verse before that, we can have a look. It is about halal and haram issue. Say to them, come, I will tell you what things your Rabb has made mandatory for you. That do not associate anyone with Allah, i.e. do not consider anyone else's law worthy of obedience alongside His. Obey only the laws of Allah. Because we will contaminate our psyche if we go outside the Quran. Treat parents with benevolence. Due to old age, they need your supervision and support. Help them, and whatever deficiency has occurred in them as a result, compensate for it. And see, this is the responsibility of Allah, because He has created all of us and He is asking Mu'mineen to do it. And that is how we should look at Salehdeeds. Continuing this same verse, do not keep your children deprived of correct education, training, and nourishment due to this fear that you will become impoverished by spending on them. We might, some of us, we are coming from an Asian background, we might think that this does not happen. This commonly happens in the Western world, and even in other parts of the world where children are neglected by parents, and despite having means, parents do not look after them. But over here, Allah is taking that responsibility and asking us, that is Jamaat-e-Momineen, to establish the system of Deen so that that system takes responsibility on behalf of Allah. And next part makes it clear, our system takes this responsibility. And if this is not happening in the world, then it is a charge sheet. This is a crime of those who claim to be Mu'mineen, that it will provide the means of sustenance for you and your progeny. Now we can see the seriousness of the whole thing, that what is happening, all that criminality which is taking place in the world for centuries after the initial era of Muslims is the fault of those who claim themselves to be the readers, studying and the custodians of the Quran. Never go anywhere near shameful matters, whether this is open debauchery or hidden. And we can see plenty of it in today's world. Never kill any life unjustly without haqq, which Allah has declared as being worthy of respect. Killing a self without justification is a very severe crime. And we are witnessing this on a regular basis in today's world. These are those matters which Allah has commanded on you, so that by employing intellect and reasoning you remain bound to these. And let us go to the next verse, 6:152, continuing duties of Allah in relation to the human world. There is a lot which Allah has taken on Himself. وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا مَالَ الْيَتِيمِ إِلَّا بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ حَتَّى يَبْلُغَ أَشُدَّهُ وَأَوْفُوا الْكَيْلَ وَالْمِيزَانَ بِالْقِسْطِ لَا نُكَلِّفُ نَفْسًا إِلَّا وُسْعَهَا وَإِذْ قُلْتُمْ فَاعْدِلُوا وَلَوْ كَانَ ذَا قُرْبَىٰ وَبِعَهْدِ اللَّهِ أَوْفُوا ذَلِكُمْ وَصَّاكُمْ بِهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَذَكَّرُونَ. He has also commanded that never dare to even touch the possessions of orphans, yatim, except in the case of spending something from it in a balanced way for their benefit and upbringing. This too up to the point in time when they reach adulthood. And we know how much emphasis Quran has put on yatim and miskin, that do not create them in your world. And if somehow they have been created, then you deal with them. Because if you do not recognize them, then essentially you are not man of deen. If you remember verse Surah Ma'un, in which Quran has said that those who cannot recognize these yatim and miskin, essentially they deny deen. Do justice in weighing and measurement, i.e. in economic matters, always keep haqq and justice before you. Next is, remember, do not think from these commands that restrictions are being placed on you for no reason. Because Quran has made it clear is La nukallifu nafsan illa wusaha, that whatever is given in the Quran is to expand your vision, to make you or enable you to carry out those duties which Allah has taken on Himself. And all these are Allah's duties, because He has created human beings. But now He wants us, who have acquired new life through Eimaan and Salehdeeds, to carry these out. And so Quran gives us the procedure as well. This is not so. The very aim of our commands and laws is that vastness becomes created in the human self. By obedience to correct laws, the human self becomes developed. Now continuing the same verse, and whenever you say something, keep justice before you, even if this may impact your close relation. So see how absolutely the justice defined by the Quran, how absolute it is, how precise it is. Fulfill that commitment and covenant of yours which you have made with Allah due to becoming a Mu'min. And we discussed it previously as well, that essentially, for example, we are going through this presentation. Essentially, we must think very hard within our heart that we made this commitment to Allah? Are we fully committed to it? And if we are committed to it, are we going to strive on this together and try to first come to grips with the message of the Quran so that it becomes part of ourselves, as just like we do breathing? These are those commands which Allah explains in order that you may keep them before you in every aspect of life. All these we need to carry out on behalf of Allah. If we do not, then the world will be infested by all kinds of evils carried out by unguided human beings. So as students of the Quran, if we are not putting in our best as the Quran is demanding us, then we should stop complaining about what is going on around the world. Because if we are striving and putting in our best and fully committed to this path, then we have no reason to complain about it, because then we are putting in our best, and we should hope that at some point in the future the results will manifest in more concrete form. Next is a verse 475, continuing duties of Allah in relation to the human world. And we will see here how the Quran makes it clear by tangible examples. وَمَا لَكُمْ لَا تُقَاتِلُونَ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَالْمُسْتَضْعَفِينَ مِنَ الرِّجَالِ وَالنِّسَاءِ وَالْوِلْدَانِ الَّذِينَ يَقُولُونَ رَبَّنَا أَخْرِجْنَا مِنْ هَذِهِ الْقَرْيَةِ الظَّالِمِ أَهْلُهَا وَاجْعَل لَّنَا مِن لَّدُنكَ وَلِيًّا وَاجْعَل لَّنَا مِن لَّدُنكَ نَصِيرًا. O Jamaat Mu'mineen, what has happened to you that you do not rise up to fight in the path of Allah? Do you not hear how the people of Mecca, who are oppressed and persecuted, helpless and vulnerable, weak and feeble, men, women, and children, are imploring to us profusely that, O our Rabb, take us out from this town whose inhabitants are so bent upon injustice and oppression. We should just replace this Mecca with Gaza or some other place in the world. Do you not hear how the people of Gaza or Palestine who are oppressed and persecuted? And then see what is the result. And Allah is asking Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen to go and help them. And if these are not being helped, that means there is no Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen, and all these so-called followers of the Quran have nothing to do with Allah and the Quran. O flag bearers of the Islamic State, do you not hear these supplications? And if you are listening, then what are you waiting for? Why do you not rise up to help them? Do you not hear with what anguish they are imploring us? They are asking us to create some companion and helper for them, some supporter and benefactor. And if you remember, then the state of Medina was established, and they went and helped them in Mecca, and Mecca was then liberated, should I say. So this is something which we should think and keep this verse all the time in mind. And when people complain about Palestine, if they are Muslims, then ask them to read this verse, and then ask them that they should come to the Quran. Now, next verse is 22:41. What is the procedure and process for accomplishing these tasks? The Quran lays down the complete procedure before us. The issue with us is that we become impatient. We are not willing to strive on this path as Allah is asking us to strive. We start following our desires, become distracted, and then leave the path and move away. And we experience it on a daily basis. And we have seen that even on this this platform, which is a pure Quranic platform for the sole aim of creating a Jamaat, creating a team of people who are interested on this path. And how many people come and then leave, become distracted because they want quick results. They don't want a Quran like that in which they have to commit their life for rest of their life here as well as in the hereafter. And now we should not think that they do a lot of good deeds, and why will they not be rewarded? Because they will be presenting this evidence against their own selves. Allazina in makannahum fil ardi aqamus salata wa atuz zakata wa amaru bil ma'ruf wa nahwa anil munkar wa lillahi aqibatul umur. And we can see all these verses that these are very clearly telling us that what exactly we are supposed to do. These are very precise, to the point. There is no ambiguity here. There is no vagueness here. This Jamaat of those who are oppressed, which has arisen in the world to eradicate injustice and transgression, if we bestowed them with power in the land, they acquired government. They will not resort to injustice and coercion. They will establish the system of salat so that all members of society keep obeying the laws of Allah. The Quran in itself is explaining what salat means and what zakat means. They will provide the means of nourishment to the whole of mankind. They will implement those commands which the law of Allah, the Quran, acknowledges to be correct, and will forbid from all such acts which it does not declare as legitimate. In a nutshell, they will look at every matter confronting them and see what is the verdict of the law of Allah in this regard. In this way, through discussion and analysis and through mutual consultation, ultimately in their government, the decision on every matter will be according to the law of Allah. And this is what it means, وَلِلَّهِ عَاقِبَةُ الْأُمُورِ, that every amr in this state by these human beings will be referred back to Allah's book. And this is what it means to become Mu'min and do Salehdeeds, that this whole thing becomes part of our psyche. Now let us go to another verse, 314, continuing with the procedure and process. يُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ وَيَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ وَيُسَارِعُونَ فِي الْخَيْرَاتِ وَأُولَٰئِكَ مِنَ الصَّالِحِينَ. And this is how we become part of the Jamaat of Salihin. These are the people among them who truly have Iman in Allah and the hereafter. They instruct those things which the Quran acknowledges to be right and forbid from those which it disapproves of. They take swift steps in those measures which are for the good of mankind. These people have been included in the category of the Salihin, that is Mu'mineen. We have seen that how much Quran puts emphasis on Ya'muruna bil Ma'ruf, And maruf over here means those values which are given in the Quran, not man-made ones, because man-made like might is right and divide and rule are nothing to do with the Quran. Quran is here to do vayanhauna anil munkar, to stop people from following those. And the problems which we see in the world is because there is no Jamaat which is standing up on behalf of Allah. And then Quran says, وَيُسَارِعُونَ فِي الْخَيْرَاتِ. They are desperate. They are all the time looking for ways and means to do Salehdeeds and make effort on this path so that they can become part of Salihin. And they continuously think on these. So Sariun means a full effort of all our possessions and our life on this path. Whatever we are doing, even within the man-made system, continuously thinking about it. How does all this change human psyche? All these traits are to be acquired willingly and deliberately with the full connivance of the heart and mind, so that conviction is acquired that Inna Allaha la yughayyiru ma biqawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim. We have gone through this verse previously as well. Allah does not change the state of a nation until they change what is within their own selves. Why is this a permanent value? Because the world which we see around us is created by evil minds, impure minds, non-Quranic minds. And this is the best we will get. In fact, this is declining gradually. And we will see that 2024 is going to be quite different from 2023. Because this is a human world and everything depends on human decision making in this world. Where is the evidence? We can easily figure out through evidence that all that is happening in the world of 2023 is based on individual and collective decision making of people that is dependent on their psyche in various positions of power. And how can good come out of this kind of a psyche which is creating a world like that? And while people are pointing out to all these problems, they are not thinking that what is the alternative? Because one set of evil minds will replace another set of evils, because we have seen that how long it takes to educate and train ourselves in and acquire that psyche which the Quran is asking us to acquire. The world is created so that we hold each other accountable and are free to make informed choices. These choices will be influenced by the kind of world we create. The Quran clearly told us that Amalu ma shaytum innahu bima ta'maluna basir. If we have any iota of doubt that Allah is directly going to interfere in human efforts through this presentation, we should take that out of our mind. It is human world, it is human beings who do it, and we should figure out what are our duties and how can we deliver those duties. And obviously we can only carry out those duties which we understand very well, and we have adequately equipped our psyche for that. We have trained ourselves. We accepted this responsibility willingly. If we are half-hearted, then essentially we are not interested in the Quran. We are just wasting our time. And that is the way we should look at it, because that facing the reality as it is very important for us, because life is a one-way street. We are never going to come back to this life again. Do whatever you wish, but remember, he that is his law of requital sees whatever you do. Innahu bima ta'maluna basir makes it absolutely crystal clear that there is accountability in everything we do. Being able to fully grasp the functioning of the man-made system is an essential part of the self's development in order to become a mu'min. This period of education, training, and experience may take many years. So on this path, we should give ourselves enough time, and that is why sabr is important. Because if we do not understand certain areas and there is a lurking doubt, there is a suspicion somewhere, that has to be removed. And that cannot be removed unless we get further evidence and we study the Quran in more detail. Now, Surah Asr, verses 1 to 3. وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. The world, i.e., human history, is a witness to this reality that human efforts have always remained futile. His hard work has gone to waste. At every juncture, he has remained unsuccessful, and in loss, he has never been able to achieve his aim. Very powerful statement of the Quran, وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. And it's a factual statement. And we are in some ways fortunate that we live in a world of 2023 where we are seeing this happening before our eyes. The whole thing that is under law of requital has now accelerated. It is going into exponential changes which are taking place around us. But in this, there is one exception, i.e., there are also such people who have remained successful and prosperous, who are those people. And those are the ones who are amanu wa amilu salihate. Those people who have conviction in the concreteness of the permanent values and immutable principles of life bestowed from the direction of Allah. But they not only have conviction, merely having conviction cannot produce any result. They have conviction on them and then do such deeds according to them, which lead to the resolving of entangled human problems. And obviously, they have to understand the problems first, and to creating balance in society, through which the development of the latent potentials of all people may take place. Continuing further, but this work cannot be carried out individually, this can only be accomplished collectively. That is why these people live a collective life in which every member not only views his duty to be that whatever deed has been assigned to him, he has fulfilled it. He also says to his companions that they too should fulfill their duty, and whatever challenges they are faced with on the path, to confront these with steadfastness and determination. This emphasis of theirs to each other on haqq and steadfastness itself becomes a source of mutual communication and discipline among them. They remain resolutely and continuously on this path, and in this way keep embedding the marks of their footsteps on this journey in their era for the coming generation. This is that Jamaat which lives a successful and prosperous life. The life of other human beings is nothing other than a tale full of regrets and failures and losses. See how much reassurance the Quran is giving us on this path. The pages of history are an evidence to this. So we should not be deluded and be under any illusion that this man-made system is going to survive for long. This system only survives in the absence of Jamaat-e-Momineen. If there are Jamaat-e-Momineen, if there is a system of deen as a model somewhere, then it takes over. Verse 3, 110. This Jamaat-e-Momineen emerges through this recipe of Eimaan and Salehdeeds. Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat linnasi ta'muruna bil ma'rufi wa tanhauna 'anil munkari wa tu'minuna billahi walau amana ahlul kitabi lakana khayran lahum minhumul mu'minuna wa aksarahumul fasiqun. The difference is that in the external universe, the laws of Allah are operating automatically, and in the human world, in order to implement them, there is the need for a Jamaat of people. This is that aim for which, O Jamaat-e-Momineen, we have raised you up so that you establish such a system which is beneficial to universal mankind. See, the language even used over here is that Allah is relating to himself, because it is his duties which this Jamaat is carrying out. And he says, we have raised you up. And this is the beauty of the Quran, that it encourages us. And it is a factual statement as well, because all the abilities which are given to us, we should utilize them voluntarily in the path of Allah. For this, it is necessary that you command those things which the Quran recognizes as being right and forbid from those which are disliked by it. But you can only say all this to others when you yourself have complete conviction in the truth of these laws. And that is what tu'minuna billahi, that whatever we are asking others to do in the light of the Quran, we must understand it first fully, evidence-based, and then pass it on to others. If even these people of the book, by having Eimaan in the truth of this system, make it the goal of their life too, then it will be better for them. Among them, some people have accepted Eimaan in this. See, the Quran does not leave things to confusion. It is saying over here, minhumul mu'minuna, who have accepted this Eimaan and have become mu'mineen, just like others. But the majority are those who are treading on the wrong paths and severely oppose this system. And when we do not follow this path and we willingly or unwillingly oppose it, then essentially we are not carrying out those duties, those responsibilities, and bringing out those potentials which are built within us, which is a failure of human being as a human being possessing a self. 2455, formula of Eimaan and Salehdeeds laid down bare in front of us. وعد الله الذين آمنوا منكم وعملوا الصالحات لا يستخلفنهم في الأرض كما استخلف الذين من قبلهم ولا يمكنن لهم دينهم الذي ارتضى لهم ولا يبدلنهم من بعد خوفهم أمنا يعبدونني لا يشركون بي شيئا ومن كفر بعد ذلك فأولئك هم الفاسقون. And over here the Quran has very clearly spelled it out, وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ, that it is Allah's promise to help those amanu minkum wa amilu salihate, those who follow this formula, who make it as part of their self. The question which remains is that what will be achieved by obedience to these laws? We have made a promise to these people who maintain conviction in the truth of these laws and perform these according to our devised program which manifests their potentials, that we will establish them on this earth with power, and their government will convert this earth into a paradise. This is our eternal law according to which we had also bestowed this kind of government to former nations. And we make a huge mistake when we think that this promise is fulfilled in the initial era and it cannot be done now. Or we think in our own heart, that is, we limit our own abilities by saying that how can it be fulfilled with each one of us who have come together. Because this is the way formula is. If we follow this and keep doing it and keep increasing our own abilities on this path, then a stage will come at some point where things will start to expand. These will, because initially as a seed, there will be a small Jamaat, and that Jamaat will carry out these things very slowly, gradually, pedantically over a period of time. And then others will join in who are interested to follow this path. And seeing the strength of it, then these things will start expanding, just like a seed which grows into a fruit tree over many, many years. According to this same law, we will bestow government as a consequence of their Eimaan and Salehdeeds, and will strengthen that system of life of theirs which we have approved for them. The consequence of this will be that their fear will transform into peace so that they can follow our laws and only our laws with great peace and contentment, and that there should be no kind of compulsion or pressure on them to obey someone else along with this, and in this way commit shirk. No power in the world should be able to force them to obey man-made laws together with the laws of Allah. And that is the crux of the whole thing, that Quran is asking us to develop that kind of steadfastness and resoluteness within us, that anyone outside the Quran, if he or she asks us and invites us, we have the ability to say big no, that path is not for us. And secondly, gradually that fear turns into peace, because as we understand these things, then we know that the formula which we are following will materialize into tangible results at some point in the future. Formula of Eimaan and Salehdeeds laid down bare in front of us, and it is continuing to the next slide. But listen to this carefully, that this process will remain in place until the time that this nation continues to act according to our laws. And we know that in the initial era of Islam, when whole of this deen was contaminated by these narrations called ahadith, and that was the downfall of them, because it affected their psyche. Their psyche changed. They started pursuing those goals which were not in line with the Quran. Those people who, after establishing such a system, reject it in practical terms, and instead of the commands of Allah, become busy implementing their own laws. The moment human beings bring in their own laws, their own values, and replace the permanent values, that is the day when rot sets in. Then these people, after abandoning this highway of life which was taking them towards the correct destination, will set out on other paths, and thus will become deprived of the bounties of the paradisiacal life. These bounties were the outcome of Eimaan and deeds. When Eimaan and deeds no longer remain, then how can the bounties remain? Now finally, 2 verses to sum up today's talk. وَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِنَ الصَّالِحَاتِ وَهُوَ مُؤْمِنٌ فَلَا يَخَافُ ظُلْمًا وَلَا هَضْمًا وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ لَهُمْ مَغْفِرَةٌ وَرِزْقٌ كَرِيمٌ. What happens with these Eimaan and Salehdeeds? That They will not have fear of any injustices in the world. And that is very important because this is a psychological change, a tremendous psychological change which comes within our psyche. And the individual who, after accepting the code of laws of Allah, will perform potential enhancing works, he will neither have fear from the injustice of a tyrant nor apprehension about exploitation and abuse from the one who usurps rights. Very important. It's a tremendous change which occurs within human psyche, because then we understand what is going on in the world, and then we have full Iman, full conviction in the help of Allah's laws, which will favor us. Sometimes we look too much on the physical side and think that this is not possible. But this is how the system of Deen got established previously as well. We have gone through the accounts of various messengers till the day the whole other system was destroyed or was replaced. People thought that this is an impossible thing. But what made that Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen to be so convinced about their own cause was over a period of time, over a long period of time, they had made it as part of their psyche, and they had gone over it and had seen the signs as well. Therefore, those people who, by having conviction in the truth of this law, will perform those deeds which bring out their potentials and abilities, they will remain protected and secured from ruin and destruction, and they will obtain sustenance with respect and dignity. And that is very important. Maghfiratan, if we want security of the future, then we have to follow this path and keep following this path. And Rizq and Kareem is the one where human dignity and respect is not compromised. The moment it is compromised, and it will always be compromised within the man-made system, we simply cannot imagine that how much dignity and respect is there within the system of Deen for each individual, because it comes from the direction of Allah. No human being has a right to tell someone that I feed you. We are the ones who are feeding you. They all related to Allah and to, of course, His system. These two verses highlight both individual and collective aspects of the verse. And in putting this together, Brother Asif Jaleel helped to review this presentation, and this assistance is gratefully acknowledged. Thanks for your time and for sharing this today. Please feel free to share it with your contacts, and you may like to subscribe for future talks related to the Quranic system of Deen.